World Hockey Report live, coming to you on 12 Ounce Sports. Cody Jansen with you here, Wednesday, May 13th. Hope everyone's having a good week, still enjoying quarantine, whatever day we're on. I'm sure it's 2 months plus without real sports, or hockey in general. We'll go with that. We are starting to get a few sports back, slowly but surely. End of the day, I'll take what I can get right now, watching whatever I can. And hey, if you want to place a little bit of money down, you gotta go to mybookie.ag. They're gonna hook you up through our friends at 12 Ounce Sports. They're legit, the real deal. mybookie.ag. Use promo code 12OZ Sports. Yes, there's tons of stuff still there that you can get in on the action on. It's all good. There's so much. I mean, there's soccer going on right now, esports, baseball. Yeah, it's all foreign stuff right now, but hey, I mean, the MLB is going to be coming back. I strongly believe the NHL will hand out the Stanley Cup this season. From everything I've been hearing, everyone I've been talking to, the general consensus is they're going to find a way to get this season done, and then if need be, they'll push back next season. They're not too worried about that. They're more worried about getting this season done. We are going to start off with the show. Some thoughts. The NHL regular season, it's dead. I don't know what else they want or what else they expect from it, but the NHL's regular season, it's got to go. It's pointless at this point. I don't like the 24-team playoff format either. I think that's dumb. Just in general, these teams are not fully invested in it. If you're competing for a draft lottery, you're not going to be fully on board for playing out the regular season, which is the position that most teams are in. All right, then we'll get to our What's Nutrition and Performance question of the day. Asked yesterday, got a good amount of answers. Did enjoy that. Favorite goalie masks of all time. I'll get into my top 3. Of course, we'll get your answers. Hit us up anytime. We're on Twitter at World Hockey RPT, on Facebook as well. World Hockey Report there. Of course, thanks to our friends over at 12 Ounce Sports hooking us up. Yes, we are streaming everywhere. It feels like everywhere, at least. On so many different platforms now. Hard to keep track. But of course, they're hooking us up. I mean, we're coming to you live through Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, the website, 12ozsportsradio.com/live. All of that and more. That's where you're getting your content for today. Coming up at 9:20, we got former Washington Capitals forward Steve Seftel. That's going to be a good one. Got his book. Hey, got to give a shout out to that. It's unbelievable. Still working my way through it. Got it sitting beside me here. Those watching. Yeah, great book we got going on right there. We're going to talk a little bit about that. About his career as well. He had an interesting one. Spent some time playing in the minors in Baltimore. So that's pretty cool as well. I'm sure he's got some great stories. Really looking forward to that one at 9:20 with Steve. Then at 9:40, barring any changes, Ian Moran. That's going to be a great one as well. Former Pittsburgh Penguin. Played almost 500 NHL games, plus another 66 in the playoffs, I think. That's not bad. Former Pittsburgh Penguin, Bruin, Duck. Got his cup of coffee in Anaheim. No, it's going to be an awesome one as well. Tough guy, tough as nails when he played. Looking forward to that as well. It's World Hockey Report live, coming to you on 12 Ounce Sports. Already, I said we're going to get to it off the hop, and it's something that really every single time I hear about it, it's not like I get frustrated or I'm like, why would you even want to play it out? But at this point, the NHL regular season's dead. There's no point in playing it. It's over. It's a lost cause. The teams that are in the draft lottery race per se, they don't want to play it. I don't know why Stevie Yzerman says that he thinks it's going to be good or that people actually want to play it out. No, you want to lose games. You want to get the best pick. You're not making playoffs. It doesn't matter. Bringing your guys back for 2 months of training just to play 8 to 10 games, whatever. stupid. It's clueless. I mean, you're risking injury. There's so many risks involved that it's not worth it at all. And if you're going to be one of those teams or people, fans, players that are going to complain because you're out of the playoff picture in game 70, you didn't do your job. You had 70 games to put yourself in a playoff spot. I really don't care if your team was close to making the playoffs. Were you heating up at the end of the season? No, I don't care at all. Boo-hoo, go cry. So your team battled through injuries, whatever. That's part of the regular season. That's why you play it. Put yourself in a playoff position from day one. Don't go, oh yeah, hypothetically we were heating up. We were the hottest team in the last 10 games. I really don't care. I don't care if you think your team was about to peak at the right time. Put yourself in a playoff position, and that's going to do the talking. So, do I agree with them taking the top 4 teams out of each division just to hand out the Stanley Cup? No, I don't. Top 8 should be in, no matter what. And I mean, I've said it before. I think the NCAA March Madness bracket is the way to go for playoff standards. Expanding it to 24 doesn't make sense. I haven't heard a logical excuse for that. And I don't think I ever will. I don't think that you could convince me that 24 teams is better than 16. Or that 8 is better than 16. I don't agree with that, because then the whole division thing makes 0 sense. It'll be interesting to see, though. Just taking the division champs? Well then, why during the regular season, in previous years, would you do anything different? It makes no sense to shorten it. Especially if you're going to be playing series. No. Empty rinks anyways. Might as well finish it out. All or nothing. Honestly, I'd rather see them play 7-game series in empty rinks than go to some, 24-team format, couple of 3-game series, couple of 5. No. Finishing out, give out the cup. I don't care if you're going to start next season in December. I really don't. Or in January. No one's going to be offended if you have to push back the start of next season just to give out the cup this year. I don't see teams playing in front of fans before October, no chance. September. Do I see full stadiums in effect? I struggle to see it. The leagues that are saying, oh yeah, we're still planning for an October start date. That's questionable. I mean, it's still a long ways away, but to have 20,000 people in a rink at that time still seems a little bit crazy. Not that, places can't handle it. I think up at Edmonton we've got, 9 cases of coronavirus, COVID, whatever. So it's not like I think people are at a huge risk. I'm not sure people are ready to go back to the way that things were. I think extra measures need to be in place. I mean, when you think about how many people you come in contact with at something like a sporting event, a concert, the safety standards just aren't there. So it'll be interesting to see. Saw a funny picture though, that Chinese baseball league. They got the fans social distancing. They're like 6 seats apart or something. That's hilarious. I wish I could find that one. I think 12 Ounce Sports has actually tweeted it out. That's gonna be like, I don't know. Are they actually gonna be able to enforce it? Can you actually enforce keeping people away? Like, I get it with their actual seats. Like, you can really minimize the capacity by that. What about the bathroom? What about the concession lines? I don't think you can fully enforce it. Maybe you can take some steps. Seems like a nightmare, though, for Ticketmaster. I got to think about that. But end of the day, my thoughts, the regular season's dead. Move on. Move past it. It's so sorry. It's gone. Posted a funny video yesterday. You got to go check that one out if you missed it. The Sergei Kostitsyn not even back check. Hilarious. So it's a 2-on-1 for the Oilers. They're coming down. And Kostitsyn just bails. That is so classic Kostitsyn, it hurts. I mean, that is... I think he's Belarusian, not Russian. But that's like that Eastern Europe. Just the give a damn meter should be up here. It's down to here. It's a tough look. A very tough look. It's a hilarious video, though. I could watch that all day. Alrighty, we're going to get to our What's Nutrition and Performance question of the day, question of the week, whatever you want to call it. Favorite goalie masks. Seeing this one going around, actually, I felt bad. Someone tweeted it out like a day before. I tweeted out the day after. Didn't even see it until, I'd posted it. I'm like, oh, feel bad for stealing it. Don't even remember who I stole it from, though. Kind of. Whatever. Still posting that question. Got a bunch of responses as well. We're going to go through those. Danny Duncan said he always loved any version of Cujo's masks. Those are classic. I think Cujo was one who was a little bit out of his shell in a certain extent. So he did have some great masks. Some good designs, good goalie pads too. Everything. A lot of answers for Gary Cheevers. And I like the design. I like the creativity. I think the stitches are cool. I love the look of the old school masks, even though those seem unbelievably dangerous. I don't know how they ever thought that was the best idea. Whatever, technology back then. It's cool. It's very simple. But it's also like that simple where I don't know if the creativity is what I really like about it. That's from Davis here. Chris says Brian Hayward, the Sharks mask. That's cool. That's really cool. I mean, the shark mouth over the cage, definitely a classic. Not even sure what type of helmet that is, but I mean, the shark mouth, the black cage, that all works together. Chris, that's a great answer. Chance Webster, Chainsaw Massacre mask. Another funny one. It's interesting. Rudy Friesen as well goes Gary Cheevers. Porter says Cheevers as well. Duncan Louie posted a mask, and it's kind of a villain one. I wish you guys can see it. You can go check it up on Twitter, World Hockey Report. I actually don't even know what it's from. I think it's a movie. Tagged a guy named Reggie in it. And so he said it's from a movie. Oh, I see it now. Hashtag Youngblood. I don't actually remember that mask from the movie. It's a pretty cool mask. Do I remember it? No. Not at all. Jason LaBarbera. This one comes from Aladdin. Very cool. Phoenix Coyotes one back in the day. Love the secondary designs in the paint job. That kind of, you've got your team logos, but now all of a sudden there's a story behind it. So if you got athletes, if you've got a city skyline, whatever, memorial, whatever you've got in there, that's what makes the masks a little extra creative. Got Gump Worsley, Eddie the Eagle, and Spooky from Richard. That's a very creepy picture. But whatever. Gump Worsley. That's a pretty cool one, though. I'll give him that. Some very cool answers in there. Max got the Patrick Wall one. I really enjoy that because just how he had the two Habs logos at the front, I thought that was creative when everyone was kind of using the sides, like the big part of the goalie masks for the design. Wall went out of his way and did that. Got another Marcus Kenner as well from Rauno. I don't even know if I'm going to pronounce his last name right here. Vainikainen. I love Kenner's. That's my 1B. His finish mask was just so clean and crisp. I love the different shades of blue, teal in there. The Suomi jersey just worked perfect. But my number one's got to be Timmy Thomas. I mean, his Bruins masks, top notch all the time. Great design. He had that weird helmet too, so like the cage was oversized. I forget, it might have been like Sport Mask or someone who made it. I don't know. Very cool though. Was a big Tim Thomas fan for that. Quickly, we'll catch you up on some hockey news. Of course, the Brendan Leipzig thing. He's waived. His contract's terminated. Probably going to the KHL. I would have to assume that. Adam was the one making dinner there, or cooking. I don't know what he ended up cooking. Bunch of funny suggestions, though. A lot of funny suggestions on there. Maybe I'll have to catch up with him next week, see what he made, see how the date went. Null hockey, great. There's so many new junior hockey teams. Like one pops up a week now. So I decided, you know what? Might as well start ranking them. Let's start with the Danbury Hat-Tricks because they just like completely copied a Federal Hockey League team. For the Null, I'm assuming it's the same owners. The name, it's a 5.5. I mean, like 5.5. Not creative at all. The logo, kind of cute, but yet again, they stole it, so it's a 3.1. And the colors, it's a 2.7. Very disappointing to see the Null copying a Federal Hockey League team. And then the Kansas City Scouts are back. Not the NHL of the 70s, but the Null once again. I mean, great name. That's an 8.2 right there. The logo, kind of boring. I said I hope this isn't the final logo, so I go to 4.1. Colors are 7.1 out of 10. Kind of like Florida, but you got the gold, you got the navy blue, and you got the red. Didn't like that. The NHL also thinking of making changes, according to Ryan Rishong. They talked with a medical expert. Some of the stuff that they were talking about, full face shields being mandatory, no fighting allowed, no scrums after the whistles, coaches to social distance on the bench and wearing face masks, wingers spread out further on the face-off circles, no spitting on the ice or bench. A lot of thoughts on that one. Derek O'Brien says these are just recommendations, doesn't mean they're mandatory. We get that, but these are just, they seem very far-fetched for changes, so it's definitely interesting there. A lot of people are agreeing with it, though. I don't know, I just can't see every single NHLer wearing a full face mask. That just doesn't completely make sense to me. But who knows? All right, let's go to commercial. We got Steve Seftel coming up next. We're going to talk about his book and the former Washington Capitol forward joining World Hockey Report live right after this. World Hockey Report live coming to you on 12 Ounce Sports. Cody Jansen with you here, May 13th, 9:22 local time, up in the Great White North. Happy to be joined now, the author of Shattered Ice, Steve Seftel. Steve, how's it going?
Pretty good under the conditions we're all living through right now. It's certainly something most of us have not experienced in our lifetime. So certainly an adjustment, but we're doing our best here. I'm in Waterloo, Ontario now, so things are starting to slowly get back to normal within the province, but it's going to be a process.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, everyone's stuck inside, so you might as well go read a book. I would definitely. I mean, reading Shattered Ice right now, it's great. Obviously, that's your book about your life, your career, your hockey story. So, I mean, we might as well jump right into it. What was it like? I mean, when did you decide that, hey, I want to write a book about my hockey career, my life? Like, when was that decision when you were like, this is actually something I really want to do?
Well, something I should tell you, Cody, right away is I talked about writing a book for a few years, but what really was the motivating factor was in January of 2018, I had what I would call a complete mental breakdown. I had suffered from mental illness most of my life, but I didn't understand it. Panic disorder and anxiety disorder, which really led to depression and some other things. But I went off work January of 18, and I was off for almost 2 years. And during that period of time, I was home alone initially, and I needed something to occupy my time with this. I had a spiraling mind, and struggling mentally as I was, I started to write the book, and I threw myself into it as really a full-time job. So I would write I'd drive my wife to work, and I would write from 9 to 5, pick her up after work, and we'd be together in the evening. But it was a cathartic healing process. That's how it started.
Wow. Okay, I know that the book does touch up on a lot of that stuff, and so it's definitely, every hockey player has a different story. I think that's what I find so intriguing, and I mean it's good to hear that you're obviously on a better path right now. But growing up in the game, what made you fall in love with hockey? What made you really get into it?
Well, not unlike many kids in Canada, a lot of us have a very similar story in those early years, and I certainly capture that at the beginning of the book. And my first chapter in Shattered Ice is called Queensmount Arena, and that's the community rink I grew up playing in. I talk about playing at the outdoor rink at the local school, like as many of us did. I talk about playing road hockey, foot hockey, everything with hockey, and with the winters being as they were. And that was the gathering place, outdoor rinks, playing road hockey, playing pond hockey with your friends. And then, of course, at your neighborhood community arena where, that was your world. It was, looking back, it was a small world. Even though as a youth, it seems really large, but that's how it started, just a passion for the game. And I think a lot of people chuckle because my first favorite team was the Buffalo Sabres. Most people back then were either Toronto Maple Leaf or Montreal Canadiens fans. With where we live here, I grew up in Kitchener, Ontario, so we were heavily influenced by the Buffalo, New York area when it came to television. And Sabres games were on TV here, as were the Maple Leafs. And I loved the French Connection. Used to watch them every Tuesday night. Their home games were on TV. And Gilbert Perreault and René Robert and Rick Martin. And then my favorite player was Danny Gare back in the mid-'70s.
Yeah, you did mention the French Connection in there. That's definitely something that influenced. Now, being a winger forward like yourself, like as a kid, like were those players you were trying to emulate your game after? Like, obviously it's a little bit different when, you're jumping up and down from the minors to the pro, like you're playing different roles and stuff. But growing up, playing juniors, obviously you're a top player at that level. Like, did you kind of emulate your game off of them? Whereas like most kids probably would have leaned towards, the superstars in the league of the 70s where, the French Connection maybe aren't as well known to your average hockey fan.
That's a good question. I remember not necessarily, I looked up to those players, but I didn't necessarily want to be a centerman or a defenseman. defenseman. I just wanted to play the game like they did. And I remember, you mentioned that, it made me think of my minor hockey days. For several years, I flip-flopped between defense and forward. I played left defense and left wing, and it seemed to alternate yearly based on where the coaches slotted me in their lineup. And it wasn't a problem. I just wanted to play. It didn't matter to me what position it was. I just loved the game, and not unlike many kids. You love watching it on TV, and sure, you want to be like those guys. That's the dream, but you just you develop that passion for the sport, and you just want to play it all the time.
Totally fair. How long in total did it take you to write the book then? I mean, I know you said it was pretty much like a full-time job for you, so I feel like it might have gone a little bit quicker in that sense, but how long did it take you to, finish Shattered Ice top to bottom, like say day one till the first book gets printed?
It took 18 months, so I started in January of 18. I had it published in July of 19, which was coming up on a year shortly. And I'll tell you an interesting story. Is near the end of it, when it was getting ready to publish and print, I was quite excited. And I'd looked at a lot of other hockey books, and I realized that a lot of guys had forwards in their books. And I thought, I need a forward, because I just thought that would be kind of the icing on the cake. And it was an easy thought for a decision for me. I thought of the guy who was my favorite coach in my career, and that was Doug MacLean. Many coaches, or all coaches, leave an impression on you, and so they contribute to your development. But Doug MacLean was my favorite coach that I ever played for. That was with the Baltimore Skipjacks. So I reached out to him, and I let him know some of the struggles I was going through at the time. And he was surprised, because often with mental health, people are ashamed or unwilling to share, and that's getting better in society as we talk about it more. But Doug invited me to Toronto for lunch. It's funny, he walked right from the studios at Hockey Central and met me for lunch downtown Toronto. We chatted for a couple hours and talked about the old times, and I had asked him if he'd write the forward, and he agreed. And wow, it was a great meeting, great reunion, and that was the first time in a long time I really reconnected with the hockey world.
That's unreal. Steve Seftel, our guest, author of Shattered Ice. Got to go check that book out. It's available pretty much everywhere. I see it online all the time. Steve, you kind of at the start of the book, and kind of in those first few chapters, you get into a lot of your brighter moments of the game, and kind of the highs of your career, being a solid minor hockey junior player and stuff like that. When did you know that you wanted to really make hockey your career, that you had a chance to make hockey your profession?
I totally remember that moment, and I can share that with you. I played midget hockey. It was the UHL draft back in the 80s was a midget draft, so I played major midget as an underage with a bunch of other guys in Kitchener. And at the end of that season, 4 of the players from our team, the Kitchener Green Shirts, were selected in the OHL draft. None of the underage players, including myself, were picked, even though we were technically eligible. And it was that moment, and then 2 of those 4 players went on to play in the Ontario Hockey League, and when I saw that, and I'll never forget, as a matter of fact, the first game of the OHL season the following year, it was we went Kitchener Rangers versus North Bay Centennials, and the 2 players from my midget team that were drafted, Peter Lisi and John Keller, were playing against each other in that game at the Kitchener Odd. And I remember watching that game with some of my teammates and seeing them out on the ice. That's the first time I really thought I can do this, and I was really determined to make it happen.
That's fair there. It's always interesting to see some people kind of go through it. And I mean, they're top end junior and college guys, and they're kind of like, I really didn't know I'd have a chance to, be in the NHL or make an impact in general. But yet again, you worked your way up, and I mean, you did spend some time in Baltimore, as you said. But what was kind of your first welcome to the NHL moment? Like, what kind of hit you when you're there and you're like, holy shit, I'm actually in the NHL right now?
I tell a story in my book about that moment. First time I got called up in the regular season, and I arrived for practice caps, and we practiced in Virginia. And we lined up. Terry Murray was the head coach, and we were playing the next day in Detroit. So it was a day before a game practice, and then we were going to grab a plane to Detroit. And we lined up in a 2-on-1 drill, and I tell this story in the book. I lined up on my side of the ice, so I'm on the left side. On the right side was Dino Ciccarelli. And Coach Murray blew the whistle, and Dino took off like he was shot out of a cannon. And I'm pumping my legs as fast as I can to try to keep up to him. And we finished the 2-on-1. And I remember just at that moment saying to myself, wow, like, these guys practice hard. That was a real eye-opener. Like, they didn't practice long, but they went as hard as they could while they were on the ice. And they just raised the level of intensity. And you often hear that term or phrase, practice the way you play, and he was certainly, Dino gave me that lesson in my first practice when I got called up.
Obviously, you got to play in a great era of hockey. I mean, there were some unbelievable talents back then. Who would you say was the most, impressive player to you? Doesn't exactly have to be, the most skilled or the toughest or the fastest, but who was the most impressive to you that, was a player that you would just catch yourself watching and be like, holy, I got to play against this guy? Or play with him?
Well, in all fairness, I grew up, fairness to Wayne Gretzky, he was my idol growing up. We talked in the book, too, about going to see him play at Maple Leaf Gardens. I always followed his career, and he was my favorite player from a young age. But the player that always mesmerized me was Mario Lemieux. And I guess partly because at that time, when I was playing, Wayne had been traded to LA, so he was on the West Coast. But Mario was in the Capitals division with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And anytime either of those two guys came to DC, being in Baltimore, it was easy drive down to Washington. And we were always welcome at the Capitol Center to watch home games if we could. And whenever Gretzky and Lemieux came to town, I'd go watch. But I saw Mario play a lot, as I said, because he was in the old Patrick division with the Capitals, and he just took over games. Like, at times it looked like nobody could take the puck away from him, and that he just could do whatever he wanted, whether it was passing, shooting, finding the open guy. And yeah, it was mesmerizing at times what he could do with his stick and his reach. He was a real fun player to watch, and I always admired Mario. I watched him play in the 1984 Memorial Cup with Laval because it was in Kitchener back in '84, and that was the year he got drafted to the National Leagues. Yeah, I always admired Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky, of course.
Incredible. I've always said this about Mario, is that like I know that him and Jagr were, the 1A, 1B there, but if Mario had the same health and didn't go through some of those issues that he did as Jagr, he would be arguably the greatest player of all time and, put up there or above Wayne Gretzky, because I think that he was that dominant. Obviously, I mean, hey, sometimes, those health issues, they do kick in, stuff like that. But, if he were to play the same time frame as a guy like Jagr, like one of his peers, I would say, he would, without a doubt, be side by side with Gretzky.
Another story, Mario was obviously older, and I remember another game I went to see at the Capitol Center was, in fact, Jagr's rookie season. It was his first visit to the Capitol Center. It might have been the first game of the regular season, his rookie year, and I remember my roommate, Steve Malte, and I went down to watch because we wanted to see this kid everybody was talking about, this Jaromir Jagr. And he was 18, and he was kind of scrawny back then. He's a much bigger man now. But you could see he had to get stronger and learn the North American game, but you could see that the skill was obviously there. It was just going to be only a matter of time before he'd be dominating. But Mario was still the leader of that team.
No kidding. What was it like playing hockey in Baltimore then? Obviously, they had the Skipjacks for a while, and I've had a few younger hockey players on that are they grew up playing hockey in Baltimore and around that surrounding area where it's really not the traditional sport. So what was it like for you playing there?
I enjoyed the city. It's a really nice area, that Baltimore, Washington area. It's certainly not a hockey town. There's a diehard group of fans that follow the Skipjacks, but they love the Orioles because of Baltimore. It's a baseball town, that was our arch rival. They're about an hour and a half away. And at that time, they were the Flyers minor league, American League affiliate. So you kind of had the Capitals, Flyers, again, Patrick Division rivals, really disliked each other. So then Hershey, Baltimore, that was just a natural rivalry. And the rink we could have up to 10,000 people there when Hershey came to town. But the average crowd was probably in that 2,500, 3,000 range.
Wow. No, it seems like an interesting place for sure. Definitely, kind of a unconventional hockey bet. Steve, hey, I really appreciate you doing this. Last one for you though. Where can people find your book? Where's the best place, for them to find it if they want to read Shattered Ice?
Well, unfortunately, with the COVID-19 and the shutdown of all most of the bookstores still, the best place to get it at this point is on Amazon. I'll share with you as well. So I have a paperback on Amazon as well as Kindle version. But I also last fall personally recorded the Audible version, which was a terrific experience just to be able to tell my story.
That's cool.
Type of platform. So it is available as well on Audible if anybody has a membership or would like to look into that version. So yeah, you can get a paperback, Kindle, and Audible audio versions through Amazon. And if the bookstores reopen, hopefully that's not too far off. It's available in stores, but only in Ontario right now.
That's so cool, actually. I used to listen to audiobooks a lot, and so I've never actually really heard of an athlete do that for that. So that's really cool. Guys, everyone go check out Shattered Ice. It's great. Steve Seftel, our guest. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning. And hey, I'm sure you've got a ton more Baltimore stories and Washington stories that we can get. So maybe we'll have to bring you on later in the summer as well.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Steve Seftel, our guest there, former Washington Capital. We got to go to commercial break. When we come back, it's Ian Moran. Going to go join the show here. World Hockey Report live on 12 Ounce Sports. World Hockey Report live from you on 12 Ounce Sports. Tony Jansen with you here. It's our big guest of the day by Wits Nutrition and Performance. Go check them out whenever you want. Personal workout plan, nutrition plan. WNP is the place to be. Go check them out. Now joined by Ian Moran, former NHL defenseman. Ian, how's it going this morning?
Great. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Can't complain for, quarantine day. I don't know, we're a couple of months in now. So I think I was trying to do math in my head earlier, and I think it's been like 2 months without the NHL. So haven't gone crazy yet. I can't complain.
Yeah, no, it's been a long find other interests. Otherwise, you got nothing going on. So, but I definitely miss hockey.
What are you keeping busy with then nowadays?
So what I do with the company, the scouting service I'm with, is Neutral Zone. I run the NHL side of it all. So my job all year was to primarily watch and focus on the kids who'd be eligible for the 2020 draft. So 2004 years, late 01s. Maybe, the kid who's a 2000 or 2001 who slipped through a couple of drafts. So I was really focused on those guys. So what I've done is I go back and watch different players playing in beginning of the season, October, November, December, watch a couple games, look at they've progressed, regressed, they're still making the same mistakes, if they've improved, if they've gotten more poise with the puck, all those kinds of things. So I still end up watching a ton of hockey. It's just on tape rather than being live, but it's all leading up to the NHL draft, which is apparently about a month away.
Who knows when it's going to be? I mean, there's been a million dates thrown around, and I mean, for me personally, I don't have a problem with it being before the NHL returns, but there's a lot of people who are very much against it coming back too soon or whatever. I really don't see a point. I mean, hey, these players aren't actually going to be eligible to play this season, which I think all of them will understand, but who knows? The NHL just needs something. Like, the NFL was drawing in 16 million viewers. Like, people are totally wanting to consume North American sports. You got to find a way to give it to them, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I'm watching dog shows at night, so you can imagine. I'm willing to watch anything. So but I don't really. I mean, from what I've been told is that the GMs and the organizations are going to be given 4 weeks to prep for the draft. I'm sure they're pretty much know what they've got going on right now as it is. So, I mean, realistically, like you said, nobody drafted is going to be ready to play right now anyway. So I don't know what their gripe would be. It's just trying to get the NHL and market it right, get the name out there moving again.
For sure, and I think that if you wait too long, I feel like the very first sport to come back is going to be an absolute hit. So whether that's baseball or whatever, something is going to take a huge...
It's going to be Tyson's comeback.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy. He's like, I mean, how does a 53-year-old throw punches like that? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to me. I thought it was sped up for the longest time until I was seeing more videos, and I was like, you're kidding me. This guy.
Yeah, that'll be wild to see him fight, though. I mean, I would definitely... I don't buy pay-per-views, but I would buy that, for sure.
Oh, definitely something to consider. I mean,
unbelievable.
Ian, let's get into your career a little bit because, hey, you spent, I think, almost 500 games in the show, and most of it was with Pittsburgh. So making that transition from college to the NHL, when was your moment that you were kind of like, wow, okay, we're actually doing this. Like, I can actually play in the National Hockey League?
So I spent about a year and a half in the minors playing in the IHL. We had a few guys that had gone up and down and had done training camps. So in my heart, I always believed I was going to be able to do it and I was going to be able to play and prepared that way. My first game actually was in the playoffs. Got called up. The year before, I had been a Black Ace and I had never played. And then this year, I got called up and I ended up playing my first game against Washington. Pretty much from that point on, I knew that I could play. I just knew I'd have to change my role, how I played or how I processed stuff, because I'd always been a really offensive defenseman growing up. And, the offensive talent that was in Pittsburgh, we had a bunch of Hall of Famers, and it was, pretty obvious that if I wanted to stick around in Pittsburgh, I'd have to change and develop into a pass-first, defensive-minded guy. And, that was really what I did. So I played that playoffs as an offensive guy, so to speak, and then I came back the next year and just became a pass-first guy and made sure that I was a reliable two-way player. From there, I was able to stick around and play for a little while.
That was one of the things I wanted to ask you about. So at the college level, even the IHL, man, I mean, like you put up really good numbers for a defenseman. Then coming into the NHL, like, how tough was it to really transition your game into, a guy who took care of his D zone first, essentially? Like, you knew that you likely weren't going to be playing PP1 on that team. Like, was it tough, or was it something where, in your head you were mentally prepared to play that style?
I think it's probably different with every player. Most of the guys that are playing in the NHL, they were the offensive guy wherever they were prior to getting to the NHL. I mean, the guys that are the power play guys or the offensive guys in the NHL, I mean, they're really dynamic, creative guys. They're at a different level than everybody else. But just for the average guy playing in the NHL is going to be the best or the most skilled guy of anybody you're playing with. Usually what happens is a guy gets drafted and he kind of realizes in the middle of year 1, 2, what for him to stick around, for him to play, what he has to do, what his game is going to make up, and what to be able to play in the NHL. That's for me, when that's when I'm scouting, that I watch a kid's brain to see how they process things. To me, the head is the most important thing. But I think for every player, it's different. But if you went up and down any NHL roster, everybody there was at one point, and one point very recently to their NHL career was the best or the go-to player on that team. So I don't think it was a unique situation for me. I think there was a bunch of guys in Pittsburgh and a bunch of guys all over the league that had to adapt and change their game, to be a player, to be a role guy, to be a penalty killer. I know when I was drafted, they said I'd never ever be a penalty killer. It was, that was the knock on me, that I was just offensive minded, and I would never be a killer. And I ended up evolving. That I ended up, being a primary penalty killer for a long time. So it's just a mindset. You've got to make a commitment to it, and commitment to playing D, and be willing to put in the hard work, and just basically change your mindset from being go to let the offensive guys go, and you just take care of what you have to take care of.
That's very true. I mean, it is definitely a role change for almost anyone kind of coming into the NHL. Yeah. When you were with Pittsburgh, though, who was arguably the toughest player to defend then? Like, obviously, you played a good stretch and you saw, the game change a little bit coming from the 90s into the early 2000s and stuff. But, who was a player that, if you had to be one-on-one with, you were like, shit, this is not going to turn out well?
That's tough because every team usually has a guy or two that's pretty dynamic and pretty creative. One-on-one wise, being honest, I was never worried about getting beat one-on-one. I thought I could move well enough, and was strong enough and smart enough that I could put guys into positions where I would have the advantage angle wise and taking away time and space. I think the guys that are most dangerous are the guys that they create quick 2-on-1s, or quick they can do the space to understand if you're leaning to make a pass and a give and go, or then you're caught in no man's land. But as far as names, I mean, played against Gretzky, and Gretzky was 5'10", 5'11", 165, 170 pounds. He's one way, and then you play against Lindros, who was 6'3", 6'4", 235. So it was different that you had to prepare for each team and each line a little bit differently. I was with the Penguins, we ended up, my matchup most of the time was against Lindros' line. So you'd have those guys that were just like the Legion of Boom, that were doing whatever they were. They would just Lindros, Leclerc, and Michael Renberg were just big, strong guys that wore you down. Or you'd go against smaller, quick guys, like I said, Gretzky, who's just smart. He outthought everybody. But really and truly, every team was different. Like Alexander McGillney was, incredibly dynamic and dangerous one-on-one. Bure was, straight speed. And you'd have, Yager. One-on-one and Yager was ridiculous. Probably the scariest guy one-on-one period was Alexei Kovalev. He was the most skilled guy I played with by far, with and against. But it's really and truly, it was each team you had to prepare a little bit differently for who you were going against. So.
That's funny. No, there's a ton. And I was actually going to ask you about Lindros because you were a part of the Pens when they had some of those epic series against the Flyers, correct? Okay, what was like who hit you the hardest then? What was the hardest? Like being a D man, the worst part or the worst thing you can think of is a guy coming in on a forecheck and just absolutely crushing you in the corner. Like who hit you the hardest where you were like, oh, let's not do that again?
To tell you the truth, I think it's more chaotic and there's bigger hits in college hockey than there was in the NHL.
Really?
Yeah, the hardest I ever got hit was at the end of my career. I got sent to Lowell by New Jersey on a conditioning stint, and we were playing Manchester. And they tell you when you figure out if they tell you when you're on the bench, you watch what the other team's forechecks are off a face-off, so you have a general idea where guys are going to be. You don't know exactly where they're going to end up because they can freewheel a little bit, but you kind of watch face-offs and see how they forecheck, how to win and a loss, what they do. It was a D-zone face-off, and I can't remember who it was who hit me, but we won the face-off and went D-to-D behind the net, and how the whole team's been forechecking. I should have had, a second easily to make a play. And basically the puck came to me from my partner, and I got absolutely smoked. I had snot all over my face, and just, one of the snot records, and he just killed me. I can't remember who it was. I think it was a kid, my last name was Flynn, but I really don't know. I remember I came to the bench, and Kevin Dean was our assistant coach with the Bruins now, and I literally have snot like all over me and in my ear, and I'm like, what the hell? What the fuck is he doing there for? He's not supposed to be there. And Dino just grabs me and like, it's a little bit different here. He kind of free wheeled it. I was like, holy God! I was 35 years old, and the kid was probably 22, and just decided he was going to light up an old man, and boy did he give it to me.
That's
But
hilarious.
that was by far the hardest thing I did. Not even close.
That's hilarious. Now, you did have a little bit of offense in the NHL. What was your first goal? Walk me through it.
First goal was against Marty Brodeur.
Not a big deal.
We were forechecking. It was in New Jersey. Puck came wrapping around the boards, and I basically just moved down and took a bounce, and I just one-time hit beat to the far side. And I got smoked after I scored that one too, but it wasn't a hard hit. It was just positionally I went down, but I know it went far side on Marty.
Okay. No big selly then though, because you got rocked after, eh?
Yeah, no, there was nothing. Just went in, and it was what it was. Just went far side. So that was about it, though.
Okay, now you also made stops in Boston and Anaheim. Where was where was the most intimidating place? Now you played West Coast, East Coast. Where was like the toughest barn to play in the NHL? Like where were the fans or craziest fans, road fans, not Pittsburgh? I mean, I know you'd say Pittsburgh most likely is your favorite place, but like where was a rink where you knew that if you were going into, it was going to be tough?
Philly always has great fans. I always loved it going in, and when the fans were into it, they were screaming and yelling, and they knew stuff about you. I always thought it was fun. Philly had great fans, whether it was in Boston or with Pittsburgh. It was always great to go into Montreal. Montreal on a Saturday night, it was an event. It wasn't a game. It was an event. People got there early. It was jammed. There's electricity out in the street, but everybody wanted to go. Montreal was great. Toronto was great. It was really, if you were in a Canadian city, you got a Hockey Night in Canada game was always a great game because you knew it was just going to be electric and the crowd was into it. But realistically, it was fun whenever the fans were all over you and they knew what was going on. It always made it a ton of fun. And Pittsburgh, Boston had big rivalries, Pittsburgh and Philly, and then Boston and Montreal had good rivalries. We had some battles with Toronto. They had some good tough teams. But it was just fun when the crowd was into it and they were loud. But Philly was great. There would always be fights in the crowd. It was always pretty fun. And like I said, Toronto or Montreal was really it was like an event going to games there. It was really great music and warm ups and great crowd. They were into it. A little bit different than Philly's crowd. They might be a little bit more respectful.
A little bit.
But it was always a ton of fun.
Do you remember your first fight? Who was it against and how'd it go?
First fight in the NHL was Darby Hendrickson in Toronto. It was a good fight. It was a really good one. It was Don Cherry's one of his fight of the week, fight of the month. It was a good fight.
Did you get on Rock'em Sock'em at least?
What's that?
Did you get on Rock'em Sock'em at least?
Yeah, Yeah, I know it was a good one. I mean, we threw punches into each other's face for about 30, 35 seconds, so it was a good one. It was a whole lot of defense. I fought a lot in the minors. In the IHL, you had to fight. You didn't have a choice. It was just the way it was. I couldn't tell you who my first fight in the minors was, but I know the one year I had, I think, 90 or 96 penalty minutes, and I think I had 15 majors. So it was just a different time. Like, you fought, it was just the way it was. It wasn't. But I don't remember who first fight in the minors was. But it was, I broke my nose a couple of times and all that kind of good stuff.
No way. Ian, hey, I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm sure you've got a ton more stories and stuff we can dig deeper into, so might have to get you on another time, get some of those IHL stories, because from what everyone that's talked about the league has just had, crazy stories. Like, that was the AHL on steroids at some points.
The eye was something else. It was every whistle there was a scrum or a fight, or there was something. And if there was a major, one real fight going on where the two guys got major penalties, there were at least two others where there were guys dancing around, no gloves on, and giving pot shots to each other. But it was fun. It was a fun league to play in. I had a blast playing anywhere. It was always fun, but it was fun.
Best sport in the world. Well, hey, Ian, I really appreciate you doing this. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Anytime.
Ian Moran, former Pittsburgh Penguin defenseman, also spent time in Boston, Anaheim. Great conversation there. Wow, got to thank our guest today. Good show. Shattered Ice, again, I got the book right here. We're crushing it. We're going to get through it. There's also the audiobook. Huge audiobook guy. If I'm ever making a road trip, I get into podcasts now, but audiobooks are great. Go check it out. Shattered Ice. Steve Seftel, former Washington Capitol, Baltimore Skipjack, author of that one. Definitely go check him out. Support him. Hey, he's supporting World Hockey Report. He's taking the time to come on. You got to thank him for that. Ian Moran as well. I Am Hockey Skills. Also, Neutral Zone. You got to go check that out too. Ian Moran, thank you very much to our guests. Of course, our sponsors, MyBookie.ag. Use promo code 12OZ Sports. Support the crew, Wits Nutrition and Performance as well. Great swag there. You can go get your fresh look for the summer. 12-ounce sports. The mall's on the website, 12OZSportsRadio.com. Find yourself cool new shirts, whatever you're looking for. Beach towels. They've got it all. That's going to do it for this one. World Hockey Report Live. Wrapping it up for another week. Taking a look at next week very quickly before Pete's Power Plays comes up. Get Scott Powers from the Athletic Chicago. Jillian Kemmerer covering the KHL. I'm sure we're going to get some good stories there. That's going to do it. Cody Jansen, World Hockey Report, signing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wednesday, May 13th episode of Pete's Power Plays, hosted by the one, the only King on the Ice himself, Philly Pete. And we are live on 12-ounce sports and Zingo TV. This show, per usual, is sponsored by Seat Giant. I know, sports aren't going on right now, but Seat Giant, when fans are able to get back into stadiums, please make sure you use Seat Giant for the first row and the best seat in the house. Also, MyBookie. Live sports may feel on hold to you right now, but that's not the case with MyBookie. They got tons of action for you to get in on the fun over at MyBookie.ag. Whether esports or overseas baseball is your thing, they got you covered when you use the promo code 12-ounce sports when making your first deposit. They will match your first deposit up to $1,000. Don't feel like watching baseball at 2 o'clock in the morning? Well, MyBookie has you covered with an online casino to scratch that itch. And it's a very good casino, if I have to say. Go to MyBookie betonline.ag and use the promo code 12ounce sports. That's 12OZ sports, all one word, today for free money when making your first deposit. Also, if you're looking to freshen up your look for the summer, you have to check out 12ounce sports' new line of clothing. We've got everything from shirts and sweaters to beach towels and phone cases. Summer is right around the corner, thank God. Some great 12ounce sports towels will look phenomenal on the beach. Find the store online today at 12ozsportsradio.com under the Our Store tab. There you'll find a wide variety of clothing items, colors, and sizes that will suit your style. That's 12ozsportsradio.com under the Our Store tab. And last but not least, Zingo TV. When signing up for an account, ladies and gentlemen, please ensure to use the promo code 12ounce. That's 12OZ, all one word, when signing up for an account with Zingo TV. From there, you'll be able to stream live all of our phenomenal shows that we have on 12ounce sports, including yours truly, Pete's Power Plays. And listen, I'm glad that we can all of our shows actually could provide the entertainment of everyone's needs during these times, and we will continue to do so because we are a very strong network, and everyone has a phenomenal show, and everyone has different outtakes on certain situations. So this is why we're all a great group, basically a nice sports family that I would like that we all can provide to you during this time. So, but yeah, so yesterday we got involved with. Yesterday we talked about The Last Dance, episode 7 and 8, my review for that. 9 and 10 will be review for next week's show. I also brought Gina in to talk about WWE Money in the Bank and AEW Dark. We also have AEW tonight with another action-packed card that should be another phenomenal show for AEW. Next week is going to be even more ridiculous. I am going to do, and this is by popular demand here, a lot of DMs, people reaching out to me in regards, but a lot of people have wanted me to do I guess some sort of like a one and done tournament style NHL simulation. I know Cody actually brought this up actually it's on 12 Ounce. It's an article about how the NHL should resume play, and I have to agree there. I think the March Madness tournament, one and done for the hockey playoffs would probably be the most legitimate way. I know about a month ago I did my simulation as to who would win. If the current playoff seedings were now, who would move on? And I did have the Flyers playing the Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Finals and the Flyers hoisting the cup. Of course, playing by how they were doing and the momentum, basically. But this is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to have 16 teams, obviously. I'm going to have basically everything's going to be set up on each side. You're going to have the Western Conference on one side, you're going to have the Eastern Conference on the other side. One playing the 8, 2 playing the 7, basically set it up like a March Madness style, one and done. So I know most of you have reached out to me, and I know like Cody actually just put this out on an article. So I think this could be a very, very cool sort of simulation as to who I think would advance. Again, this is more of a one and done. Now the one I did before was, the normal NHL platform, best of sevens. So now that it's just a one-game playoff, a one and done, it's a little bit more of a different perspective in terms of how teams are actually going to be fighting for this now. So that's going to be on next week's show. I'm also going to talk more about fantasy football in terms of positions, ranks by positions. I'm going to have my top 5 for running backs, top 5 for receivers, top 5 quarterbacks, and top 5 tight ends on next week's show as well. So stay tuned for another action-packed week next week. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the latest NHL Stanley Cup odds and news, and also Gina will be back again as we will go in review for Ozark Season 1. I know I had Season 3 on my timeline on Twitter, but we figured that let's just go. For those that didn't see Ozark, it'd probably be better off starting on Season 1 and then building up next week Season 2 and then the following week Season 3. So, it'll be a bit-by-bit segment on that show by season. So today, ladies and gentlemen, long and behold, today is going to be Philly Pete's NFL Fantasy Mock Draft version 1.0. I'm going to give you basically a 2-round mock of how I feel what the season's going to be like, based on schedules, based on how hard the schedule is and how easy the schedule is. Like I said, I also go by how easy and difficult schedules are per position. So by quarterbacks, what the toughest quarterback schedule is going to be, what the easiest quarterback schedule is going to be, running back easiest schedule, hardest schedule, and so on. Receiver, tight end, you get the gist of that. So let's not waste any time here. I'm going to go straight into this right now. So, I'm going to, first off, this is just, we don't know what we're going to get this season. A lot of news is speculating, and this is going to be in all sports, that there's going to be actual fan noise playing on the basically all across the stadium, on the speakers, on the loudspeakers. They're going to have actual fan crowd noise, pulling a little Atlanta Falcons back in the day a couple years ago when they would just, kind of bring in more crowd noise than what they currently have. And, now it's going to come into effect in all sports. I heard that for the MLB. First and foremost, the MLB is supposed to be starting July 4th weekend, like I mentioned a few weeks ago. I still stand by that. And the more I hear about it, the more it's basically going to be July 1st now, too, which is, American history. And why not look at, when you're thinking about July 4th weekend, you think about tradition and baseball. Hot dogs and burgers on the grill, all the condiments, and basically baseball, MLB. So July 4th weekend, like I said before, I'll say it again, is basically a tentative time to start baseball. And I think between MLB and the NHL, I just really do think that right now I just think it's a lost cause. I really truly thought that it would come back in beginning of July as well. But to me, I just think that now, we're coming to the middle of May now, and there has been no talks yet. I know there's still hosts that want to bring hockey back, which is fine, but what can you really get out of this? Players still need a month to recoup and get back into the action. But to me, I think NBA should pull an NHL, and hopefully it would be great that if both could just do a March Madness style, or maybe a best out of 3. Just hand out the trophies to both sports, respectively, and then let baseball do its thing from July on. And then you have the NFL starting with preseason in August. So, but again, time will tell with all this. Everything is such a cluster as is, and everyone's on their edge of their seats to see when exactly sports, are going to resume, the main sports that is. And we got a sneak peek with the USC over the weekend. This past Saturday, which was really, really nice. You couldn't even tell that there were fans not there because it was that great of a USC card, and I did enjoy that. So, long and behold, here we are, Philly Pete, version 1.0 NFL mock draft, starting with the first pick here. So, we're going to go back and forth here, and I know a lot of people are asking. It's an easy consensus number one here. And, before I want to get into this, there's some news as well in terms of, the Philadelphia Eagles. They are looking into another potential veteran running back, and that veteran running back, Eagles fans, can be none other than Carlos Hyde, the ex-Houston Texan, the ex-San Francisco 49er, the ex-Cleveland Brown. The Eagles have been in touch with Carlos Hyde as a backup, a good red zone power back to back up Miles Sanders, as we know is going to be a hefty 2020 for him, which is why he's so far up on my ranks. He is a early second rounder for me, Miles Sanders, but a lot of contact with Carlos Hyde in regards for the Philadelphia Eagles, so that would be something to look forward to. David Johnson, another player where you can probably snag in the 6th or 7th round this season, and he has a lot of upside. The first 6 to 7 weeks last year in PPRs, he ranked top 5, top 6, behind the CMCs, behind the Saquons, behind the Zekes, behind the Delvin Cooks and Derrick Henrys out there. David Johnson, as much of a lackluster that he is the last couple of years, and the fact that he's a first-round pick, the last 3 or 4 years, he's actually, when it comes to PPR, he actually does provide pretty good. But, this year, to me, I think if you could snag him in the 6th or 7th round, I think you're getting very, very good value for David Johnson, who is going to be basically the cowbell of the Houston Texans, especially if Carlos Hyde's gone. And all you have to worry about is Duke Johnson, who really, he's more of a catching running back than he is running back. So I think David Johnson is set for a very hopefully comeback 2020 season for the Houston Texans, and I look forward to that. David Montgomery, another player that I think with a crappy offensive line and quarterback, I should say, I think he's also, again, this is another player that you could probably snag in this 5th, 6th, maybe even 7th round in fantasy. I'd say probably like 5th and 6th, to be honest here with you. But I think that's like the average round that you're going to get both David Johnson and David Montgomery, players that didn't provide last year, especially David Johnson. But this year, hopefully, David Montgomery, obviously, second season in, and hopefully that this is the turning point for him. But again, it just depends on the offensive line in Chicago, which is why he has up value, especially in the 6th round. So David Johnson, same way to me as well. I just think if you could snag him in the 6th or 7th round this season, I think you're set to go here. I know Gronkowski is also up there. A lot of talks about him in terms of where I would rank him. Someone reached out to me the other day in terms of what round he would be available in. God, I can't even speak on this Wednesday because it's so nice out in the Philly area. However, Rob Gronkowski to me is, again, I think between 6 to 8 range. If you're in a PPR league, half PPR, I think you're probably going to look at about probably between 5 and 7. But if you're in a standard league, I'd say probably 8th round. You could probably get Gronk, maybe 7th. It depends how the players that you're drafting with, the other people that you're drafting with have the high intensity of Rob Gronkowski and the fact that they would draft him in like the 4th round, which is absurd to me. But again, you got Brady at the helm, and you got to look at Chris Godwin and Mike Evans this year. I don't know. I mean, Godwin to me is a top 6 receiver for sure, but and Evans as well is right behind him. I mean, they're definitely they're probably on the bottom tier of top 10 receivers, But, the fact that Jameis threw the ball, consistently a lot, that's why their running backs are not even, there should be no running backs in Tampa Bay whatsoever, to be honest with you. But like I mentioned before, Evans and Godwin could have a decreasing season this year. I am not hyped on them because I don't know what to expect from Tom Brady this year. I mean, terrific Tom has, like I said, Gronk. He has Godwin. He has Evans. He has Cameron Brate. He has O.J. Howard, and you have Ronald Jones in the backfield with Mr. Dare himself as well, another running back. They lost Peyton Barber, but still, I mean, I just don't know. It all depends on Tom Brady. You're in a warm climate now. You're older. I'm not really too hyped on the Evans-Godwin train this season. I think they're going to have a little bit of a decrease in terms of value this season. However, if you're in a 12-team league, I still think that Godwin and Evans are early to middle, maybe even late 2nd round picks for me. Again, it just really depends on how Tom Brady performs this season. But to me, I just don't think they're going to provide enough compared to the last few years between Evans and Godwin. So those are just my little outtakes. Again, next week I will get into full force of my top 5s and explain specifically who my top 5 running backs are in fantasy and why, my top 5 receivers. Each day during the week I will have a top 5 and my explanations of each player for that ranking. So first round, here we go. First pick overall, again, it's a consensus to me. You go either way, but I just think that you got to go with Mr. Christian McCaffrey here, especially in a PPR, full PPR, half PPR. The fantasy, the NFL fantasy daily, basically the daily fantasy for FanDuel and DraftKings. When it comes to lineups, I am the guru. When it comes to that, all my clients that are out there are looking forward to my lineups this season. Basically, when you buy my season package for the NHL, you get the NFL daily fantasy lineups as well for DraftKings and FanDuel. So, so everyone loves that. And like I said, the past 2 years, all my clients have basically racked up the green in terms of money with my lineup. So, again, I look forward to season 3 with doing this and to even go bigger than what I did the first 2 seasons for you guys out there. So, Christian McCaffrey overall number 1 for me. there's nothing more about this. Full point PPR, especially, even half point PPR, and even standard leagues, you have to go with Christian McCaffrey here. There's nothing more about this. He's the whole team. We know that. He got paid this summer, he got paid in the offseason. And basically, you could try to make the argument that he shouldn't go number one overall this year, but outside of saying that running backs don't repeat the top option here, but there's nothing that should suggest that McCaffrey won't. He's just not a running back. Like I said, he when it comes to PPR, he'll catch. We know his catching abilities. He can juke. He can run. He's got breakaway speed. He can stiff arm. He can do everything, and that's why the last 2 years, he's been a top 2 running back, honestly, between him and Saquon or him and Zeke. I mean, you have to imagine, CMC is going to be a number 1 this year overall consensusly. Like, there should be a no-brainer that your number 1 pick should be Christian McCaffrey, no doubt. So basically, he scored about 183 points, half PPR through the air alone. So I know that, and he could have been the number 20 overall wide receiver in fantasy last year if that was the case, and if he was a running back, if he was a receiver, and that was even ahead of Stephon Diggs of the Minnesota Vikings, which is crazy to me. You have a running back that can catch that got more receiving yards, half PPR points compared to Stephon Diggs. Like, this is insane to me. But, it's just McCaffrey, he will play from week 1 to the end of the season. We know that, as long as he's healthy, and the new offense, and then you bring in Teddy Bridgewater as well. So nothing's going to hurt here. Christian McCaffrey is my overall number 1. Number 2, you can decide here, but again, I'm going with Saquon Barkley. We know he came back to earth a little bit last season. 4.5 yards per carry, but behind the Giants line. And this year, we know in the draft they got some very good linemen for Saquon. I expect another heavy workload for Saquon this year, and I expect him to do a lot better this year than compared to last year. Rookie year, we knew that he kicked ass. Last year, kind of came back to earth a little bit, but this year, again, like I said, between the draft picks and getting more offensive help line for Daniel Jones and for Saquon, I really truly think here that Saquon could definitely blow up this season. And the Giants are honestly they're building their offense around him and no one else. You have Golden Tate, you have Sterling Shepard, you have Evan Ingram. They're all injury prone as well, so we know that, and everything really relies on Saquon at this point. So to me, I just think that Daniel Jones can actually take a step forward in his second year. Open lanes for Barkley, like I said, with their draft picks that they selected. And, I just think that it won't hurt him whatsoever when it comes to the offense this year. So Saquon Barkley, especially in full point PPR, standard leagues, half point PPR, whatever you name it, should be the second overall pick in your drafts. Number 3 for me, none other than Zeke Elliott himself. Listen, a great stat about Zeke is that, there's only been one running back in the last basically 4 to 5 years who finished top 6, 3 times, and that's Zeke. He's never finished as a number 1 though, but he's been top 6 3 times in a row, and as a running back. So that's great news. You're getting consistency with him. He's a bull. I mean, we know that. We know Zeke is a bull. Knock on wood, he rarely gets hurt. He gets up and he'll drag opponents. We know that, and he can score. And the passing game, obviously, with the addition of CeeDee Lamb, now Zeke will probably get hurt in terms of catching the ball this season because of CeeDee Lamb. And, you have Michael Gallup, and, of course, you have Amari Cooper. So they're pretty stacked with the triple-headed horse they have there at the receiving core. So I see more of running for Zeke than catching this season. And but listen, we proved time and time again that, it's tough to stop Zeke, especially on the ground. You have him in the backfield with a 3 receiver set. And if they hand him off the ball on a 3rd and 3, we know that he's going to get the first down. He's a safe pick, like I said. It's tough for him to get hurt, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago. But it's just amazing to me. And he's just obviously posted running back 2 numbers or better in 93% of his career games. So this is insane. Great stat. Zeke at number 3 overall to me is about as safe as you can get in terms of running backs. Now you get into like the nitty gritty of certain things. If you're in a full point PPR league or half point PPR league, I would consider taking Michael Thomas here at 4. If you're in standard leagues, then I would probably take Kamara here at 5. Oh, I'm sorry, at 4. Just to me that it's just different here. It's different. This is when you get into the nitty gritty in terms of the 4th pick overall. And if you're in PPR and half PPR, I think Michael Thomas here, obviously the first receiver. I think when it comes to this season, he basically is set. He's set. He's among top 40 in single game performances throughout the season, and obviously the number 1 receiver. He had 67 points, half PPR points, and honestly, you can't argue that another receiver may finish number 1, but he's also atop of the receiver ranks when it comes to fantasy drafts. So, we know he had a great season last year, like I mentioned, but when you're in a half point or full point PPR league, I truly think that you take the gamble here with Michael Thomas at number 4. If you're in the standard leagues now, you could probably look at an Alvin Kamara or even a Dalvin Cook. I kind of rank Dalvin Cook a little bit later than usual because I just think that Dalvin Cook, this was his first healthy season, and look what he can provide. I really don't want to hype him up as much as he should be. I know he's a great talented player, but we need a few healthy seasons from him before we can assume, he is in that overall top 5 mix. So right now he's ranked at 5th and 6th overall. But again, if you're in a standard league and you have the 4th pick, I'd probably go ahead and take Kamara over Dalvin Cook at number 4, just because, Kamara can catch and he can run. And I know he had a slip up this past season. He didn't have the best, but you're getting production from him. You're getting production from Alvin Kamara. You don't have to worry about anyone that's behind him. Dalvin Cook has Madison behind him as well. So, but again, it just comes down to who you like better, whose stats are better, and like I said, when I draft, I always look at the easiest schedule for running backs. Obviously that's just how you should go when it comes to drafting teams in fantasy football. That's why I've been so successful in my fantasy leagues within the last 10 to 15 years of playing this. And I should go longer than that. I think since basically 2002. I was a sophomore in high school, and that's when I started playing fantasy football. So yeah, this is going on to year 18, and between the last 3 years that I've been capping fantasy football in terms of DraftKings and all my lineups I send out for FanDuel. That's why we're having so much success for my clients, because of this reason and reason only. I've won. I'll be completely honest with you out there, ladies and gentlemen. I am in about 6 fantasy football leagues each year. Half are with my friends, the other half are with my family. All for money. It's all good. It's all fun, and like I said, it's very competitive. So each year, the last 5 years, basically the last 5 years, I'm going to be honest with you all here, but I've won out of the 6 leagues. I've won at least 5 leagues out of the 6 in the last 5 years. So hence my successfulness with fantasy football. I'm telling you, as a guru for fantasy football, that I just think that when it comes to standard and PPRs, you got to take a receiver, especially if those top 3 running backs are gone. You got to look at Michael Thomas here or Devontae Adams here for PPR and half PPR. Standard league wise, again, I like Alvin Kamara over Dalvin Cook. And again, I need to see more of Dalvin Cook before I can assume that he's going to be a great player to come in the future. So, he had an unhealthy Cook, last year or 2 years ago. Last year, Dalvin Cook had one of his first healthiest years since he got drafted. So that's where I stand on that. Next up, I do like, again, now you look at standard leagues, and I think that if you have Kamara at 4, you got to take Dalvin Cook at 5. Maybe even Derrick Henry here. But I think if Thomas is there for you at 5, take him. Take him in standard leagues, because I just think that he is the number 1 receiver for New Orleans, number 1 overall wide receiver. Can we expect the same numbers as last year? I'm not quite sure. Probably not. Usually players that blow up the year don't usually perform that great the second season. But look at Christian McCaffrey. He's done it for the last 2 years. So, Michael Thomas can practically do the same thing. So you can look at a wide variety of players here with the 5th pick. If Kamara's going at 4, like I said, or Delvin Cook, you could take the other one. You could take Thomas. I'm also looking at Derrick Henry here as well. You could look at for standard leagues. PPR, on the other hand, I think Kamara at 4 is, or again, Michael Thomas at 4 is safe. Number 5 overall, I think Kamara, just because he does catch in the backfield as well. And then because Dalvin Cook's not much of a catching running back. We all know that. So all in all, I just think that's the way to go when it comes to PPR. Derrick Henry should definitely be up there as well in terms of standard league and PPR. You could also, in PPR leagues, I would draft Davante Adams ahead of Derrick Henry simply because, well, Rodgers has no one to throw to. That was supposed to be their main target in the draft, and here they didn't get anybody. So they drafted another quarterback and they drafted another running back. So to me, I think Davante Adams, you have Devin Funchess, and that's really it. You only have those 2 players. Funchess is hit or miss. We know he can be somewhat decent if he's healthy. We saw that in Carolina. But I think that I just think that Davante Adams by himself, he had turf toe. He was out for basically a third of the season with turf toe. But we know how he is when he's healthy. And I think with a comeback year like this, I think Davante can very well overtake Michael Thomas this season when it comes to receptions and yards. But we will see. However, PPR, I will rank Davante ahead of Derrick Henry and even Delvin Cook here. So I can see Davante being a top 6 fantasy player when it comes to that. So real quick, moving on, I like to round out the top 10. I have 4, I have Michael Thomas. 5, I have Alvin Kamara. 6, I have Davante Adams. At 7, I have Delvin Cook. 8th, I have Derrick Henry. And now here you go. Number 9, I have to take Tyreek Hill. I love Tyreek Hill at number 9 here. I just think that he is the cream of the crop, again, as when it comes to wide receivers. You have a future Hall of Famer and Patty Cakes, Patrick Mahomes himself. I do think that, with the speedster that he is and with a quarterback that has so much talent, he's definitely going to rank ahead of DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones for me at number 3. Never getting a sneak peek of what Philly Pete loves as his top 5 receivers. This is why I'm doing this show, so you guys could hear it here first. Just like when I did my NHL plays, you heard all my leans and angles before the actual game started. So here we are, pre-drafts, and I do like what I see in Tyreek Hill besides, compared to Hopkins and Julio. So I like Hopkins there at 9. I like Tyreek Hill there at 9. Number 10, I like DeAndre Hopkins. He Nuke himself is coming into a new team. I would have no worries at all with him because he's going to be playing aside with Larry Fitz and Christian Kirk, who obviously we know Larry Fitz could catch every ball possible, but he's going to retire. Christian Kirk has been irrelevant ever since he got drafted. He also hasn't stayed healthy, so that's another thing. Then you have Kenyon Drake in the backfield with Kyler Murray. So this is going to be a good offense to look at with Nuke coming to field. And I really do think that Hopkins will put up some solid numbers too, because we know Kyler is a slinger when it comes to throwing. So I like that. I like Hopkins there as well. I'm going to take, Julio as well. I'm going to have Julio up there as well. He's also one of the top receivers that I like. A lot of people complain that he doesn't score enough touchdowns. I get it. Last year, I believe he had between 4 and 6 touchdown receivings. 6 touchdown receptions last year, between 4 and 6, like I said. He doesn't really score that much, but he will provide top 5, obviously, like every other year, top 5 receiver production. And he has done that ever since he's got drafted. So touchdown receptions might be down, but his overall yards, and especially in PPR, what you're getting out of Julio Jones. So that's why he ranks up there as well. Now here I want to go about 2 other running backs to round out the first round. Joe Mixon I like as well. Now that he has a good line, he has a new quarterback, he has T. Higgins as well as a receiver, and a healthy A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd. This offense should be, once again, very, very talented. And again, it just really depends how Burrow does. But I think Joe Mixon is due for a comeback year for Cincinnati. I like Mixon here as far as late first to early second. to me, he is still a late first-round pick for me. And then you could follow that up with Nick Chubb. Probably the latest pick in the first round, maybe a potential first pick in the second round if you have that 12th pick. But Chubb is still, to me, first-round talent, regardless of Kareem Hunt. It doesn't matter. Chubb will provide RB1 numbers for you, as he did last year, even with with Kareem Hunt coming back for the last 4 weeks. So that's that. Early second round now. I want to go a little bit crazy here. I'm foregoing Godwin. I'm foregoing Evans, Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake. I'm putting Mr. Travis Kelce up there at 13th, 14th overall for me. He should be a top pick in the second round on the way back in snakes. I love Travis Kelce this year. I had him last year and the year before that. He provides phenomenal. If you don't get a receiver in the first round, if you have the 12th pick, I'm highly considering taking, either a top receiver and Travis Kelce, because you're getting the best tight end in the game. Kittle is up there as well, but I just think that Kelce will produce more, and that's why I love Kelce ahead of those other guys I just named. So, and then the rest, and just to round out the second round, I really do think that you can get Godwin, Evans, Josh Jacobs as well. I'm not sure what to expect with Jacobs this year. He was a rookie last year. He did phenomenal for the Raiders. Now here we go. You're in Vegas now. You have all the hype. All the fans are out there. If there's fans this season again, which is unlikely, but can he provide RB1 numbers again like he did last year? We'll see. We will see. But I think Jacobs to me is a second round play as well, along with Godwin, Evans, and Kenyon Drake. And then you look into real quick before I end the show, quick spite who I think could be a solid third round play here, or even late second round pick here. Aaron Jones. He is dropping, and Kenny Golladay. Those two, they are dropping big time. I just think that if Stafford's healthy, you're going to get a potential top 5 receiver in Kenny Golladay this year. He catches the ball. He's brilliant. He is just such an elusive receiver that you will get points galore off of him. Aaron Jones as well, 16 rushing touchdowns last year. They did draft the kid out of Boston College. Will it affect Aaron Jones? I don't think so. I think it's overhyped. I think Aaron Jones is still even considered a first-round pick. So we'll see what happens with that. Aaron Jones should still be up there on the radar. Not sure why he's a Tier 4, bottom Tier 3 player. He should be a Tier 2 player. Kenny Golladay should be beginning of Tier 3, end of Tier 3 2 or Tier 2 player. And then Miles Sanders, too. He's going to be my steal of the draft. I think he is an everyday mid to late second round pick, maybe even early second round. He's going to be the bell cow of the Eagles this season. Like I said, no Jordan Howard. You just have Boston Scott. They might bring in Carlos Hyde, but to me, I think Miles Sanders is going to be the wild card play for running backs this season in the NFL, and you heard it here first. And last but not least, rookies, before I tune out, rookie-wise, running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting so much love. Again, he's going to be part of the trio that you have in Kansas City with Damian Williams and Darrell and Thompson. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I do like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They drafted him for a reason, and I think that if you're looking for a rookie and a potential rookie of the year that could provide RB2 numbers, I think you're looking at CEH himself. So, but ladies and gentlemen, I could talk on forever about fantasy, but this will conclude the Wednesday episode of Pete's Power Plays, hosted by the one, the only, King of the Ice himself, Philly Pete. Clients out there, thank you for all the love. I got it all week so far. I can't wait to be in touch with all you guys again in regards to future hockey plays. And I will be back tomorrow talking about the latest NHL Stanley Cup odds and Ozark Season 1 in review with none other than my wife, Gina Tucci. Hope everyone has a phenomenal Wednesday. Stay safe, stay sane, and talk to you tomorrow. Goodbye.